Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 607, being recorded on December 9, 2020. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Sproenberg.
And I'm Kent Burgess.
Yes, Kent makes his triumphant return to the show for the very first time. Somebody was asking, I think it was last week, like, bring back Kent! Like, he's never been on, but we can bring him back anyway. So he's here. And you can find out when we attempt to go live for things like this podcast recording session that we began half an hour ago at pcper.com/subscribe. So you can suffer through the pain of me figuring out that my capture card died, and that's why I couldn't get a web browser up. And you can help support the site for things like capture cards at pcper.com, or no, patreon.com/pcper. We don't own the domain. It's Patreon's domain. Brett, do we have any news on that front?
You know, we do. And funny thing happened during the whole episode, lead in here with you doing the whole deep dive beneath your desk, looking at the capture card and all that. We actually garnered another patron in that moment. Hard to believe, but people were moved enough by what clearly is a deep need on our part.
It's a desperate need for competence. And,
to toss a little bit in the kitty. And we've got two people to thank this week. James Patterson for joining during the lead-in chaos. Deep thanks to you. Thank you very much. And Aaron Walker, thank you guys. Appreciate the support. It's going to go a long way for keeping this rolling.
Really, I guarantee we're one restart away from everything working fine. I've had to just reinstall the driver on this capture card before, but hey, this is where we are.
That'll probably work.
And here we break from the intro to move into our second segment where Josh talks about food. Josh, please tell us you ate a burger this week.
I did have a burger, but I didn't take a picture of it because it was kind of mushed and didn't look that great. And so instead we went back this weekend when I went to a place called Johnny's down in Salado, Texas, and I had some real good barbecue. On the plate, I was given a couple of slices of nicely smoked brisket, 3 pork ribs that were seasoned to perfection and, still firm, but easily taken off the bone. And finally, they had a made on site jalapeno and sausage little piece of meat there. Of course, it has to come with the Texas style loaf bread and coleslaw and potato salad. And they all, made on site, all fantastic, very tasty. It was really a highlight of a trip of getting out of Dodge, which I needed so incredibly badly.
You can't go wrong with brisket.
No.
Not
with that brisket. It was fantastic. Had that good, the red ring around it, the smoke ring. Yeah.
You led
mesquite
something
barbecue.
really sad, not having the burger. And then you not having the burger, it was sad even. I felt disappointed, but then you finished so strong with the brisket. I just want to say you really came through.
It's good drama.
Yeah. 3 meat platter.
Yeah.
Josh's meat. Yeah. Normally when there's a big hardware launch, and what could be bigger than not only big Navi, but biggest Navi? And we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute or 2 or 5. But it's possibly even a bigger launch, because regardless of what graphics card you have, as long as it's a fairly powerful one, it's Cyberpunk Day. Or rather, it will be. You can start preloading now. I think most services have it available to preload.
I think you can play it
already down.
I think you can play. Preload was yesterday, I believe. I think you can get it.
Yeah, because Keith from WCC, he's playing and throwing screenshots and doing initial testing, and apparently it runs nicely on his 2070 with Ultra DXR and DLSS. It's about 40 frames per second on that, but he says it looks fantastic. I mean, I think it's at 1080p. It's next generation.
It's obviously, I mean, I like anything that reminds me of Blade Runner, and that's what appeals to me about this. If you remember that Westwood Blade Runner game from the late 1990s, has a lot of that feel, at least in certain areas of the game. I haven't played it at all yet. I will be, but...
Nah, I haven't played it at all either, but I read something, I think it was on Discord, that it sort of feels like Fallout and GTA 5 smashed together, and I can see that.
The gameplay aspect of it itself, I've seen some mixed reviews.
So, yeah, I hear that DLSS is a real boost to, obviously, the 3070, or I'm sorry, 2070 or tier, that tier to get 1080p running, but you need quite a card to get this into 2K or, heaven forbid, 4K.
Yeah, especially if you have any interest in running any of the ray tracing, like real-time ray tracing effects. Because that's been, like, we'll talk about that with the 6900 XT, but this is where it
is it DXR or is it RTX only?
I thought that there was, like, an exclusivity. I don't know what the period of time is. I thought there was RTX.
You mean RTX exclusive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen there are 5 ray tracing options to turn on. I couldn't name them, but there's like 5 sets of reflections. And
no, there's 4.
I just want to know why, if none of us have previewed the game, why are we talking about it? I mean, obviously, it's coming out later.
It's a big deal, and there are a lot of people playing it today. And based on a lot of stuff that I've heard, is it's touch and go, just some weird errors with people passing through stuff and people having conversations in the middle of firefights. It's a just launched game. If you want to play a perfect version, wait a while.
The one I want to see is apparently you're not reflected.
Yeah, I saw that too.
The entire world is, except for your character.
Just the character model.
Not a vampire, I guess.
Wow, this is a terrible screen grab here.
It's kind of nice in that we're at a point where the recently released games are now acting like the original Crysis, that they're hammering modern, just released hardware, and it gives you kind of something to look forward to with newer stuff coming down the line. But yeah, it's everything I've seen, it looks pretty amazing from a world building standpoint, and I haven't gotten it yet. I don't know when I will. I mean, I haven't even played Witcher 3 yet, so I've got so much to do. Hell, I'll finish Skyrim maybe this year.
Josh is only 10 years behind. I mean, 5 to 10 years behind with his game.
9. It was released 11/11/11.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the one hand, if they were to stop making games, Josh would be content for the rest of his life.
I would.
On the other hand, just throw out your backlog. Who cares about your backlog? I think people get hung up on that. Just like, there are games I'm never going to play. I don't care.
How can you say that? Throw out your backlog. How can you say that?
Because I
got 30 games in my backlog.
Anything that like ties you down and like, oh, I can't buy this new game because I have 6 other games I haven't played. Well, there's a reason you haven't played them, obviously. So move on. Dump those old games and move on with your life. Okay.
It's cold.
It is cold, but sometimes you have to say goodbye.
Hey, I still got to finish Rage. I'm kidding.
Oh, I gave up on that. I decided I couldn't stand it anymore and just stopped playing.
Hey, before we get too far away from the beginning of the show, I just got a name change from the Patreon, the name is simply, no, I can read this one. Rush the Bus Assaulted Me. That's it.
Oh, my.
I suspect that might be Jordan.
I suspect it might be true. I suspect it actually might be true, and you should report that to the authorities.
Well, okay, verbal assault within a public chat room isn't quite the same thing, Jordan. But maybe there's like a VR version of the PC community I'm not aware of.
There's a lot of people who are legally offended by words, so I think he's probably got a case.
Okay. But hey, it is it's another big day for computer hardware and for AMD.
It is. It is.
Because it's 6900 XT. Well, it's not 6900 XT day. It wasn't the release. The embargo was up yesterday. Yeah, it was December 8th.
Yeah.
And brace yourselves. It's like a 6800 XT, but with 8 more compute units. Is that what it is?
But
is it 72
faster.
to 80? So it's fast. It's like 10% faster.
And more watts. Supposed to be more watts.
Very few. Very few.
50.
The reviews
50
I was
of
reading.
them.
Spoiler: we didn't get one, but it's these big limited cards. Like Nvidia didn't send us a 3090 either. We got a 3080 and a 3070, and a 3060 Ti.
Well, the 3090 wasn't all that much faster than the 3080.
No, and that's the
I mean,
problem.
it's based on the same chip, except they opened up another memory channel and some more compute units and another 20 watt TDP or something like that, and it's about 10%. I thought
You're right.
double the money.
It's like a Titan card because that's what it is. They instead of calling it the Titan this time around, and I remember Jensen was talking about like we're going a different route. It's going to be less expensive than a Titan, and we're calling it the 3090. Well, even bringing it down to 1500 because Titan was significantly higher than that the previous generation. I want to say it was either 2000 or 2500.
It's 25.
Bringing it down to 15. It seemed at the time like, oh, this is a good thing. It's $1,000 less. Well, then AMD comes out and they have a card that can trade blows with it for $500 less in imaginary money where you can actually buy this stuff. So it just makes the 3090 price seem ridiculous that the 6900 XT comes out. It's a similar performance advantage over the 6800 XT as we saw 3090 versus 3080. And instead of paying a $800-ish premium, you're only paying a $500 premium. And one of the big issues facing AMD with this launch, at least in the face of games like Cyberpunk, which of course I think, that's much more of an NVIDIA focused game at launch anyway, but any kind of DirectX based ray tracing stuff, DXR, is they don't. I guess there was a expectation that the 6900 XT was going to bring AMD closer to parity with the RTX 30 series, and it just was not. Any of the reviews I've read, and I have one here pulled up from Kit Guru, they're just looking at the DXR.
It's about 2/3 the speed at best.
Yeah.
When you enable DXR stuff, it's disappointing from AMD. Well, I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of back in the day when we had tessellation, where NVIDIA was really, really good at tessellation. We had the whole Crisis 2, we're going to super tessellate everything, and AMD's performance is going to drop dramatically. And so, AMD had that kind of slider, and you could take down tessellation in the driver and get better performance. And then finally, they kind of caught up, and it's almost like we're seeing that same kind of thing with ray tracing.
That is an excellent point, Josh. I'd forgotten about that. That used to be that huge sticking point where if you had an AMD graphics card, when was the generation that was it? Hawaii
was the 6900 had
so.
The built-in tessellation.
Yeah,
that was the first generation of it, and then improved in the 7900, and then Hawaii. And it finally, I think around Hawaii, it finally got to the point where it was just as good. But nobody uses tessellation anymore. So,
hey, when I run the Unigine Heaven benchmark, I do. You'd better believe it.
Oh yeah, like a champ.
Hey, that's still a good
dragon
stressor.
It is. It is.
Still a good stressor.
You want to get a mini PC hot? Just run that on a loop forever.
Oh heck yeah!
That and
Even though it's
superposition.
DX11.
Superposition.
That's DX12.
No, Superposition's only DX11, Brett.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am sure. I was shocked when I found that out.
I thought it was DX12.
No, I thought it was DX12.
Yeah, me too.
Prove me wrong, everybody, please, because I wish it was DX12. I thought it was only DX11. Let's see. Reference card.
Closing thoughts on 6900 XT?
Do you have?
Yeah, it could have been more. It costs too much, and it's not really a big bump.
Yeah, but it's competitive with what NVIDIA has, and they're able to get around with using GDDR6 rather than GDDR6X, as well as They didn't go HBM with this generation of high-end video cards, which kind of has helped them in availability, producibility, because...
Hold on. Availability?
Well, wait, the 6900 is not available. There's no.
Okay, it's not available. Yeah, but it's still better than the Nano.
Well, I'll give you that.
Yeah, the Nano is a beautiful little card.
Yeah.
Hey, I agree with Josh though. Like okay, if you compare just this as like a Halo product, so it's not going to be produced in large quantities. That's fine. Most people are better off. In fact, almost everyone is better off getting a 6800 XT instead and saving money if you can find one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the jump in performance versus the 6800 XT, like we said at the beginning, it's about the same as a 3080 to a 3090, and it's $500 less. So if you don't care about ray tracing,
so not really worth all of the dollars.
No, neither of them are. I can't imagine if I had the money for a 3090, I would buy a 3080, and then I would spend the rest of the money on the rest of my build.
Hey, you can always clock that up a little bit and get a little bit closer. You're gonna feel better.
I don't know that what 24 gigs on the 3090.
Yeah, it's true. It depends on what you're going to do with it.
Yeah,
hey, 16 is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the 6900 XT.
Well, you can get 16 with the 6800 XT or the 6800.
You can get 16 with both of them. That's right.
I think they missed an
But you
opportunity.
get 10 with the 3080.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
not
for
as
some.
much.
Rumor is
Oh, well.
3080 Ti
With
rumor 2020.
Yeah, there's been a rumor of the 20 megabyte version for a while.
It's a strong
20
rumor.
20 gigabyte.
It's a strong rumor.
It seems likely. They should.
Anyway.
Yeah, speaking of cards, graphics cards, reference design cards. And I remember having a discussion with somebody in
we talked about this.
industry. Yes, who wanted AMD, please keep making the reference design. Don't just send it over to partners. And I got some insight into this because it makes sense. The partners don't make money off of the reference card. Like there's probably some profit involved, but if they can make their own version and they offer some enhancements, maybe the cooler is a little bit quieter, maybe the clock speeds, usually it's clock speeds, are a little bit higher, like a 30 megahertz overclock or something, then that catapults it into a higher price tier. Josh, if you put a metal backplate on it, you can raise the price.
You can raise the price by $50.
Yeah,
$50.
and that's where the profit is. So they don't want to sell the card that AMD commissioned that was made by whichever partner, Sapphire.
Probably Sapphire.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the company that does Sapphire stuff.
So it makes sense, but I saw on Twitter this morning, and it's being reported now that I think it was Scott Herkelman came forward and said, due to demand, we've decided to continue producing the reference design, because it had been reported hours before that it had been discontinued across the board, that it was just going to be added board partner designs going forward for the RX 6000 series. Do you care? Is this a good thing?
Yeah, the first time that AMD came through with a really nicely working, attractive cooler, and it would have been a shame for it to completely disappear. I'm not sure if they're talking about just feeding the reference design through their partners, or whether they are going to continue to produce it. Kind of unclear. Although Scott said that, in general, we're not retiring it. Does that mean you're going to be able to buy one at AMD.com, or are you going to be able to get the reference design, from not XFX, but like Sapphire or whoever's making MSI? I think there's a handful that were actually being sold that looked a lot exactly like the reference AMD design. So I'm not sure what they meant by that as to where you're going to be able to buy it, but still they're saying it's going to be there, which I think is great. And the price is going to be hopefully MSRP and not third-party markup. So good for the consumer on this one.
Anything
I think it's
hand quicker is good.
But it may not. That's the funny thing is that AMD's got a X amount of chips, and instead of them sending all those chips to partners to make boards, they're keeping a percentage of those chips for their reference designs. And do you think that that's going to make board partners happy?
Josh, are you saying that MSRP is bullshit?
That's not what I'm saying. not. I'm saying 3DFX bought up STB and went fully vertical, and they pissed off all of their partners.
Yep.
That's true.
And then they suddenly had issues when memory prices got up, and they were responsible for every component on that board, and they were taking a loss on every board that they made. When instead, if they would have just kept, with third-party stuff and having good partnerships and just selling chips, they avoid all those things, letting the partners deal with increases and fluctuations of memory prices and components, and still being able to make margin on each chip as long as it's competitive with what NVIDIA has in terms of overall speed and features. And so doing this it just seems like it's kind of a backward step. It's one thing to get products going. You're making these by yourself so that the partners aren't leaking them out to websites, and you're getting that initial boost into the channel of a product. And then you also send some of those reference designs to your board partners, and they stickerize them, and then they take over and then they start making themselves, and they start diversifying their designs and doing more value added features, or working to make it less expensive. And I mean, it's a wide variety of things, but I mean, if they're going to take a chunk of those chips and say, hey, we're just going to keep doing these reference and sell them directly on AMD.com, that's I don't know if that's a great idea, unless of course they just continue to push those to their partners and they stickerize them. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's how they're going to do it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that MSI fire, they're helping a brother out.
I don't know, but Scott,
we're making your cards.
I think Scott said indefinitely. I mean, did you read that, Sebastian, when you read his tweet?
But what does that mean? Indefinitely.
I don't know.
It means until we change our minds. Just like when...
Yeah, but it means not now.
The Radeon 7 wasn't discontinued, and it was rumored that it was until, they wouldn't directly answer that time. They just said, we still see it in the supply chain. It's still widely available. Like, yeah, but you're not making it anymore. And then it was EOL'd. But they never... This
feels different.
It does feel different because they're being public about it. They're going out on social media and saying, hey, due to popular demand, we're suspending the discontinuation of this indefinitely. And
it feels different to the extent of they went out and said, oh yeah, no more. Oh wait, you really wanted it? Oh, okay, we'll make them. They actually reverse course.
Let's be honest here. It's pretty easy to say, oh, we're going to keep making them when you can't buy them anyway. It's like, look, we're going to theoretically make these forever. Because at some point in 2021, when they stop making them and you can actually buy a card again, they will all be partner cards. Maybe they assuaged the partners' concerns by saying, look, you can't buy them anyway, so let's just stockpile your AIB designs until 2021.
Right. Quantity in the channel, still 0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But of that 0, the percentage of reference design cards is the same and will be indefinitely. Yeah. That's my point.
Okay. Yep. Good point. Yep. Point taken.
Yeah. Moving on to the next topic. Apparently we are back to 10 cents. Wait, we have more to talk about? We have more to talk about on this topic?
No. I was just going to say Jeremy's going to need to jump in on this, and we're going to have to wait a long time.
Well, jump in.
No, the audio's fine. It's just that you're going to have to picture the movements.
Look, there's so much going on the screen anyway. There's like a city backdrop, and like in-wind Alice Case is our 6th podcast member this week for some reason, and
yeah, that's Brady Bunch Alice for those who missed the joke.
Yeah, Kent earlier, he came up with this brilliant idea. Alice is in the middle, so we got the in-wind Alice and put it in the middle.
Kent is the most brilliant member here today. So
he has the best video quality. Mm-hmm. And it's been most consistent.
Is this now where we sing, here's a story about an editor named Sebastian?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, we could tell that story. I don't think anybody wants to hear it.
The capture card that went up in flames.
Speaking of things going up in flames, the price of SSDs. I felt like I felt like it had dropped finally. We had sub 10 cents gigabyte SSDs a year or so ago. And
Wasn't it QLC?
It was QLC,
Yeah.
though. And so we didn't have anything good.
Yeah, but they're vaguely sub 10 cents a gig. Not like this fall where
Like wafting.
dropped to 6.8 cents a gig for TLC stuff.
Oh, that would be
Go ahead. Let me go ahead and finish.
No, it's fine. I just want to put this
I'm
up
feeling
on the screen.
contrarian tonight. I apologize.
Hey, so am I. So let's fight. Team Group MP33 Pro. Inexpensive TLC storage, Jeremy?
Yeah. Like $99 is not too bad. Intel fans are going to be appreciative that it's PCIe 3.0. AMD fans are not really going to notice the difference on just about anything because honestly, the difference in normal usage, not, for instance, what you are doing, in which case PCIe 4.0 would help, but in games and booting and just random software, you're not going to see a huge difference between PCIe 4.0 and 3.0, but it's nice to have the newer one. They've using a Phison controller, which you'd expect, and more or less what that was on the box, which was 2,500 meg sequential read, 2,100 writes, was accurate in Guru 3D's testing. And so the bad thing about TLC is that you've got a hole similar to what you get with QLC, except thankfully nowhere near as bad. And so in this case, when they did a 64 gig video capture test, after about 20 gigs, you saw throughput drop down to about 1,500 megs. It's not what you want to see, but it's sort of what you should expect from TLC, and it's so much better than what you just get with a QLC drive, where you would be dropping down to stuff you haven't seen since you used a SATA hard drive, which hopefully you're not doing anymore. So, 5-year warranty, 600 terabytes total written, whichever comes first, all for $100 is not too bad, and it's not even a particular special. So expect to see this thing come down in price if they ever put a special on it. And there's a couple other TLC drives that are in this neighborhood of price. So 10 cents a gig is coming back. Isn't it nice?
So what's the deal with this drive? Is it just... Maybe I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to get that image up, but is it just a caching issue with sustained workloads like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Is this a DRAM-less design?
Sure looks it.
That price, and when you look at the stick itself, there's nowhere to put any RAM.
Yeah.
I wonder when it runs out of steam.
After about 20 gigs.
Oh, okay. Well, 20 gigs.
That's the 1 terabyte model, right? So I bet that if it's a 2 terabyte, it would double that in theory.
Yeah.
So think about those caching drives. You need more cache, and then you'll never notice it.
Well, if you spend more cash, then you will have it.
Oh, good call. Yes. And Josh, you have that fancy WD Black. There's no caching problems there. You're dealing with...
I haven't tested it yet.
Oh, well, I mean, you will.
But there's going to be. There's going to be.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be... I mean, it's still... All these PCIe 4.0 ones are all TLC. And so you're going to get, they've got some interesting algorithms and fast write stuff, and it does better. But I think that after a while, I mean, when you're really, really hammering on it, it's gonna drop down. But that's just physics of NAND. But I'm not complaining because overall regular usage for like a 1 terabyte drive, you're still probably looking at 40 to 60 gigs of the fast stuff, and it's still hard to fill that up in a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. We need more data. Need better testing. Alan needs to come back.
Yeah, I agree with that. He needs to stop being,
An Intel shill.
I was going to say, I don't know how to...
Octane. It'll be horrible.
He told me that he would take me to the Buddhist temple, wherever that kind of thing is, and teach me the ways of the Allen test suite. He told me that he would take me.
Yeah, but
that would be great.
No offense, Brett, but I mean, part of the whole Allen experience is Allen. Like, if somebody taught you how to sing like Sinatra, it's still Brett singing like Sinatra. I want Sinatra.
It's no good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you be that short and insulting at the same time? I mean, I don't know if I can manage it.
Never mind.
I don't mean Sinatra.
There are some parallels between Allen's life and Sinatra's life. They may be the same person. I'm not sure.
I really hope he's watching.
Yeah. Anyway.
Later on.
What, Josh?
Later on, I've got a great dad joke.
Oh, no.
Fantastic.
Okay. So,
We got to remember that.
Yeah, joke. I'm going to write it down.
We had another story on the list. I think Jeremy wrote this one as well. It's about monitors going ultra-wide across the market. Ooh. This is the new trend, which I approve of.
It totally is.
Well, because, I mean, you look at a monitor roundup, and you skip over the 1080. You do look at the 1440, and you definitely check out the 4K. And at the very end, they'll be like, oh, and, ultra-wide panels are a thing, so here's the first one we found when we were searching. So what they did with this one is focused at 3440 by 1440, as that's one of the more popular aspect ratios, and took a look at a couple of the ones that are around that are, worth doing. They decided, and surprisingly, it was an LG, because you don't think of them when you think of high-end gaming monitors, but they are there, and they're Ultra Gear 34 GN850, which is a 34-inch curved display with a 1600 hertz top refresh rate and a 4 millisecond response time. So obviously it's an IPS. So you're going to give up a little bit of the nice color gamut that you get on a VA panel, but at the same time, for $1,000, you're getting ultra wide, high refresh rates, and a really, really nice response time. Now, if you want to go crazy and go with the VAs, two that you'd probably expect to hear: the Acer Predator X35 and the Asus ROG Swift PG35 VQ. They're gorgeous, wonderful VA panels, very fast, and the same size. The price changes a wee bit. I mean, in the case of the Asus, it's over $3,500. The Acer, I think, is floating around about $2,400, $2,500. So, I mean, you're gonna pay for those ones, whereas you can get a decent one for about $1,000, which didn't used to be a thing. And they even went with the crazy one, which is the 9. This thing is 5120 by 1440. So 2 1440 panels, essentially. And it's 49 inches. It's a monster. I mean, if you really, really want a lot of screen real estate, it's something to take a look at. I'm not sure you'd put it, though.
Yeah. But, I mean, think about the old days of, triple displays. And you ran triple display for years, right, Jeremy?
Yep, I did for quite a while.
And that takes up a lot
of room.
I
had 324 inches.
Yep.
1920 by 1200. And I couldn't play videos on them. I had to use that special software to take off the HDCP type stuff.
Yep.
But no, they were fantastic to have that much real estate. I had IRC in one, I had the show notes in other, I had the video going on here, and plus some orange lighting to give me, some color.
Yep.
And great, 16 by 10. And those were 16 by 10 based upon what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah, 1920 by 1200. That was my favorite resolution.
That is a very nice resolution, and I wholeheartily endorse that over 16 by 9.
Bring back 2560 by 1600 monitors. That's what I say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A lost art nowadays. Jeremy, I got, I've pictured it in a couple of my reviews, but I have an AOC CU 34G2X 34-inch widescreen in 3440 by 1440, 1 microsecond VA panel, 144
Oh,
hertz
nice.
with it's I just wanted to throw that out there to say it is a pretty sweet panel. It's FreeSync, so I've plugged in a couple of NVIDIA cards to it, and they've had no trouble in syncing up to it. No tearing, screen tearing at 120 or 144 with tests or games, and
Well, that's zippy
I
quick
think
for VA.
yeah, it's really good for VA, and it's been a very, very good panel. I'm not sure. It looks like it's not one of the favored ones in their list, or maybe it's not being made anymore. It's AOC. It's the AOC CU34G2X. Maybe it's not being made anymore. They're retiring it or something. Might
They
be
were
a good
worried
deal.
that they'd make a political statement if they picked that one.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Yeah, if it's just saying the 3 letters in a row like that makes it seem like that you're endorsing something that you maybe don't want
Well,
to.
it certainly screws up their SEO.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Imagine like their U.S. presence. Like, oh, wonderful.
Oh man, what did we do? Yeah, well, yeah, they didn't do it. Anyway, it's a really excellent monitor, and it's great for games, and I've been really enjoying it. It's deep blacks, very fast. If it's available at a good price, I would wholeheartedly recommend that one. Go to your Micro Center, get it for less.
Oh yeah, thanks, Brett. You had to drop that in
Micro
here.
Center.
Go to your local
You were
Micro
waiting.
Center if you have one. How many
No,
are
it's
there
stupid.
nationwide?
25.
25. That's
And
one.
it's not
half-
my fault.
That's half as many as there are states.
Not my fault.
So half of the states don't have one. That's not fair.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
didn't
I-
Alienware come out with a new ultra wide? It's like a 38 inch with it's a stranger resolution.
Oh, that's
But
odd.
I've got one of the first generation of Alienware G-Syncs. It's been fantastic. It runs 120 hertz, but this one's like a 144. It's got a better overall panel. I think it's got a basic HDR rating to it, like HDR 800. Not the crap 400. It could be a 600, but anyway, yeah, fully G-Sync, and yeah, but that's $1,500 now again. But boy, that extra real estate and
It's on sale for $1140 right now.
Seems pricey.
Still, yeah.
yeah.
Just think about it. You're buying multiple monitors in one, essentially.
Yeah,
Without
This
all
is
the
probably
pain.
like only 900 at the Micro Center, so
Oh,
you
come
could
on.
do
All
that.
right, enough. We're moving on. Oh no, we're moving on to before we move on to Brett's review.
Yeah, let's.
It says
not
something
do that
about
right
let's check in on the health. Let's check in on the 5600X. What's going on with the 5600X?
Well, I've been testing it, and it's just a really good processor. Again, it runs on less power than the 3600X. Everything is always several percent lower. Everything is 20 to 30% faster in testing. I was able to test SAM effectively, though. I think a couple of days ago, the AMD, what is the new thing? It's not a GISA, but they call it something else.
Bar,
What?
E-bar.
No. But anyway, it's like version 1.1.0.0.
Oh, a
and now
GISA.
they're
Yeah,
up
there's
to
new a
D.
GISA. Yes.
Yeah, but they call it something else other than
It's
a GISA.
It's V2 now. It's a GISA. Yeah, you're right. There's a name for it, but they rolled over from 10005 to V2 1000, and now they've moved up, I think, to 0.00.
1.1.0.0 D. D is the latest.
Yeah,
And
I like their letters.
yeah, so apparently this has better, finer control. So it clocks. Clock curves are enhanced. I know that I had some SAM issues on the first BIOS, and also some memory compatibility issues. The second one fixed a lot of those, but didn't really improve performance. This one looks like it's going to, put a bunch of fixes in there and really kind of improve things. So I haven't been able to install that yet and get any comparative testing. But, SAM, for the most part, is not impressive from what I've seen, with one exception, and that was in Red Dead Redemption 2. And as you know, that's a pretty lovely game with a tremendous amount of assets. Just a really, I mean, it'll eat up your memory hugely. I saw like a 30% increase in minimum frame rates, and that kind of translated into a smoother playing, as well as about a 5% increase in overall average frame rates. And so that was the biggest jump of any of the ones that I had tested. Most of the other games had 1%, if that. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption showed the biggest jump in using the AMD SAM stuff. Otherwise, haven't really overclocked it. Still kind of waiting for more mature BIOSes, and AMD seems to be far more susceptible to issues with firmware than what we typically see with like Intel.
Yeah, the Intel stuff seems like it bakes a little bit longer before launch. And with AMD, it will eventually be rock solid. You just have to kind of get through the launch period.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can look forward to that review soon, I'm sure. Or at least more discussion on it. Maybe some visuals. We'll do some charts.
Some graphs and some stuff like that.
I mean, I've got it all written out. Well, I mean, documented, but yeah, anyway.
We need to start doing reviews like documentary style. Like we go into Josh's house and look over his shoulder.
Oh, like a gorilla camera,
and then slowly pan over his. Do you use a yellow legal pad? It's like scroll the legal pad of like what is this? What is this incomprehensible gibberish?
Exactly.
Oh, here we go. We're gonna see it.
He really does. I can hear it shuffling.
Camera 2.
Yep.
Oh, we couldn't see anything.
No, it's all washed.
Good.
Okay, all right. It's a little blown out.
It would be interesting to see same game that you saw some advantage in AMD with their bar support, and now get an ASUS board, right? Their latest BIOS that allows the same sort of action from an Intel 10 series. That would be very interesting to compare.
If you're curious, the Digital Foundry video, I think probably the text review too, but I watched their video review of the 6900 XT yesterday. They do some rebar testing on an Intel platform to compare it against SAM on AMD in that review. And they said it mainly affects lower resolutions, like 1080 and 1440, which they admitted was preposterous to be testing, 1080 and 1440 on the $1,500 like 3090, but it does make a difference at lower resolutions. And it's a similar difference to what SAM does. So at this point, it looks like it's just going to become a sort of platform agnostic feature that more and more board vendors are going to say, hey, here's a shortcut to it. Enable it.
Well, good.
It's an option with PCI Express and has been forever, but nobody's ever done anything with it until now.
No, why? Why though? Why is it taking so long? Is it hard to implement, or what do you think?
I think it's just in the PCIe controller. You have to enable it, and there really wasn't much of a reason. And now, I don't know. Now there is.
It's been there in the hardware, or otherwise a BIOS flash.
Well, it's in previous generations is not supported.
Yeah, not on AMD.
So it's 10 series and 5000.
Not on AMD. That's true.
Supposedly all the way back to Haswell, right? On the Intel side.
That's what they said. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it doesn't really.
If you think about it, say it, Brett. It just proves once and for all that Intel is better than AMD. Just say it.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't going to say that.
Okay. I mean, before
I was thinking it maybe. Right. I don't know.
I could sense it, and then it's going to turn to, and that was before Apple started making chips, and now Apple's better than Intel. So
we can get into that next week.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
Do you think motherboard manufacturers are going to release new BIOSes for Haswell-based motherboards to enable?
I'm gonna get out in front of that and just say no.
Certain enterprising vendors overseas might. But there are still companies that sell brand new X79 boards. So
those are like bastard boards though. Those are like a weird conglomeration of. Misfit equipment.
I subscribe to Phil's Computer Lab on YouTube, and once in a while he'll say like, "Oh, from AliExpress, I got this brand new board, and it's some ancient chipset." Anyway, we're gonna transition.
PC Chips strikes again.
Oh boy! Wait, isn't PC Chips ECS? Isn't that the?
I don't think so,
The child.
but I could be wrong. It's been ages since I've seen PC Chips.
Oh, the name is gone. I think the parent company of PC Chips is at least owns ECS or is ECS. If you go to ECS's Wikipedia page, there's a PC Chips logo
Okay.
somewhere. I think could be wrong. This was a while back. I was looking into this for no reason. We're gonna
All right,
seamlessly
you're gonna shift.
transition.
Are you gonna shift the pod?
We're gonna
Shift the podcast.
Yeah, we're not gonna transition, Brett. We're going to hold on. Camera two.
Shift.
What are we gonna do now?
Let's shift this podcast over to the Phanteks shift.
Now, bear
The shift
with
error.
me while I try
ahead.
to actually use this horrible
Oh, look, another monolith suddenly appeared.
built-in browser. Yes, actually, this was the monolith.
Don't steal my thunder yet.
Okay, I mean, isn't that like what it says? In
It literally says that.
Yeah,
That is a monolith for your desk. And I actually drew a parallel to it's modestly priced, I'd
It's only
say.
$100. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is definitely reminds me of the mysterious desert monolith. Yep, totally true. Look at it.
Is
Definitely a
that the
monolith for your
front
desk.
of the case or is that
That
the
is-
back?
That is the back. The previous version of this did not have as well vented a rear panel. So that's a vast improvement over the previous design. But you can look at it as like, oh, that's a freaking monolith. I called it a statement case. It's kind of like a piece of jewelry that you're wearing is like, oh, look at what I've got.
Oh,
And it's sort of is equivalent to like planting a monolith on your desk and going like, oh, look at my case. You can't take your eyes off it. It's
How-
actually
how
fairly
big is
attractive.
this? How big is
My
this?
case is amazing.
Let's see.
It's not that tall. It's only about 20 inches.
And it's 6.7 inches
19.3.
wide and only 10.8 inches deep.
It's very modest in size, which a couple of times during the review, I do point out that you should probably be comfortable with a small form factor enclosure because you could potentially be packing a lot of equipment and wiring inside of a space that could easily frustrate the person who's not used to dealing with an ITX small enclosure. And it's just kind of the way that it goes for these kind of little cases. But the results are like you get a very small case with potentially a lot of computing equipment packed into it. But they do include this really nice manual with it that has a lot of helpful hints and, more importantly, an order of operations to say, hey, you should probably install this piece of equipment first and then kind of route the wiring around. And that's great for people who don't often build in cases that are this small. So that's a really nice deal for them to do that sort of thing. The entire case comes apart only from the top. Thumb screws are really nice in the top,
Okay.
really easy to grab a hold of, meaty, and all the side panels just kind of pop off. This top is just opens like a cupboard, sort of like you push down on it and it pops open, you push down on it and it's click to close.
Kind of like a Western Digital dual drive enclosure, sort of.
I think so, or like an old school, like I'm going to show my old school nature here, but an old school like desktop CD enclosure. You're like, you know, you can click and open the top of the damn case. That's actually a good example of it's actually pretty high quality from
Oh, look,
just
metal
using it.
springs. This is nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and the thumb screws are all captured so they don't fall out. Very, very pleasant to use. No problem in taking it all apart.
How was the build? You mentioned it was not for the first timer necessarily, unless you followed their build guide carefully and were patient.
I'd say that the build guide would be a real help to somebody who was not used to building in a small form factor enclosure, but it really helped to have not this. Don't let this be your first enclosure would be my gut reaction to say, oh yeah, if you're used to building in a small form factor enclosure, you're going to understand the situation that's going on inside here and you won't have a problem.
By the way,
I did have.
hold on. Let's look at the photo for a second here, because this has like shades of Cyberpunk in it. I'm seeing like some purplish lighting off of metal.
There's a few. I think there might be a few in there that have that sort of purplish glow to them. The next one I was particularly happy with because I think it illustrated a couple of points. The as I said before, everything is vertical in this, and the I/O is all vertical. The graphics card is vertical, and it takes a hell of a graphics card. I actually eventually installed a 2080 Ti OC from Asus, which is a big fat card.
Yes.
And it worked great in that enclosure. But you had to be used to the fact that it was difficult to mount a little bit because of the way that they have only these 3 screws that go into this, and you needed to have this magnetic screwdriver in order to grab a hold of this one bolt that holds everything in, and I mentioned that a couple of times in this. The only difficulty I had was in mounting the Be Quiet PSU, and just below this picture with right there, this series of 4 pictures, you can see on the left these little, that one right there, I'm holding that Be Quiet SFXL PSU, which they were really nice to send out to us so that I could build in this small form factor case. I didn't happen to have an SFX PSU, so they sent one over, so thank you to them. SFXL, which actually does crowd the AIO a little bit in this enclosure, but this specific power supply caused a bit of a problem. You see, there's a pass through for the cabling on this particular case that has a rear mounted plug for the power, but it sort of routes it around underneath and routes it around to the power supply, which is mounted up front. But go to the next picture, you can see that when you plug this in, it actually goes through the middle of space and the outside of the case. And
this was sadly not uncommon, and I've had to basically right angle bend these things before.
I started to do that, and I realized that I would probably literally break it. So I did note that, as you can see here, I did note that Phanteks does say that with the tempered glass sided version of this case, that it's okay to mount the power supply with the fan facing inward. So my assumption is that our version with the fabric sided case was going to be totally cool with the fan mounted inward from the PSU. So I flipped it around and made that work.
I feel like that's never a good idea, but I guess the airflow pattern is, because there is a picture, I guess, of the airflow. So this is more, how would I best describe this? Like, is it convection style? Is everything rising from the bottom and going up? So
I think you can best describe it as, I didn't want to do it this way.
Okay. Which you'd had to. I wonder what PSU temperatures were like as a result of that move.
Actually, it worked out really well. I was sort of surprised, even though it was tucked in behind the 2080 Ti in that way. If this had been anything other than the fabric side, I would say, gosh, don't do it like this. You should really, if you're going to put this much hardware inside of this case, the fabric side is your friend. The airflow was really reasonable with no overheating of anything, and I overclocked the snot out of the CPU that I used. I used a delidded 8600K, and I overclocked it to 4.9 on all 6 cores, and it was totally fine. I probably could have pushed it to 5 gigahertz, honestly.
That's delidded, though.
I cheated. Right. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And I liquid metaled it, and I cheated.
You Jordaned it. Like, mine's delidded, so it's like, it runs way cooler and faster.
What did you expect? I mean, I guess. I worked with what I had. It was one that I had already.
Look their benchmarks, they cheat.
What's that?
I said, isn't that how Apple gets all their good benchmarks, is by cheating?
I'm sure they're all in the freezer. They're all benchmarking their laptops in the freezer.
We can fight that out later.
Yeah, that's fine. But look at this. I love this about Phanteks. Yeah. The first Phanteks review sample I ever got, I was amazed because there's a little tackle box, and each compartment has a different type of screw. They don't give you little bags. They give you a GD tackle box.
I deeply appreciated this. And the manual actually is specific to the case, and the manual has a mapping as to which screw inside the little compartment in the tackle case is for which feature of the case. They're a top line manufacturer.
This is the best photo in the review, by the way. I don't know why.
You think so?
Yeah, there's something about it, like the casual placement of for audio listeners, the casual placement of the screwdriver. It's just like, oh, it's just a moment in time. Like, oh, I'm just building this case. A little tasteless with the AORS product placement here, but it's okay. I mean,
was it too much?
The board itself.
But the fabric it adds texture to the entire composition, especially with the ridges.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Josh.
And the cut cable tie just really shows that,
or tweezer, whatever you choose to call it. Tweezers, cable tie,
The casually tweezer. Do you have any of those silicone bags? That you don't eat, but it dries out stuff. Desiccant.
You guys didn't mention the Captain 120 AIO sort of sneaking in from the corner. They don't make that anymore, by the way. That little Captain AIO. No, they don't make that.
That's a deep cool.
Yeah, it's a deep.
Okay, I take it back. Video listeners, you're in for a treat. Audio listeners, bear with us because this is almost over. But this photo, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, he's using a stock photo here? Okay. And then I thought, he took this photo, and then I realized, oh, there's like a couple of messy cables in the background, so it kind of gives it away that it's not a stock photo. But the composition, the lighting, you will never see a better, like, slightly off-angle view of a mini ITX board with an attached liquid cooler, I don't think. Fantastic.
I really appreciate the kind words that you had to say on that, and I really did, sort of shoot that for effect.
I wish that had you shot it with that in mind, that you would have done a better job of cleaning up the abhorrent cable mess, which is visible in the right side of the photo.
And the only reason that's there is because that is by design, and I will touch on that briefly.
I don't buy it.
No, it's because that's designed to be tucked underneath the outside. One of the panels. There's Phanteks advises certain cables be run from the inside to the outside of the case, up and then back into
Phanteks advises that you do it neatly, or that you before taking a photograph of it that's going to be featured in your review. That could have been the lead photo of the review. I mean,
right.
Whatever.
Fair
I'm
enough.
sorry, but
no,
look,
fair enough.
It was so
get the fabric
good.
mesh.
Get the fabric mesh. Always
get the fabric mesh.
Airflow is king.
I love it.
I heard that recently the editor-in-chief of Gamers Nexus had mesh installed into his own body.
No, he did.
He's
it's
committed
true.
to airflow, which I applaud.
It's true.
Steve Berg for that.
I took temperature measurements with and without all of the side panels, and it was only about a 3 degrees difference. And there's a shot of that AOC monitor I was talking about, and I highly advise go out and get this monitor if it's still available at a good price.
So once again, a review of a case becomes yet another shameless plug for a monitor that you probably bought at Micro Center. That I
don't want to talk about that.
Okay, yeah.
But I agree with you. I did buy it at Micro Center. Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, we got through that. I got a little bit of practice using this dreadful built-in browser with its awkward
I would say you got a fair amount of practice at beating me up during the discussion. Hats off to you on that one.
That just comes naturally.
And I appreciate that. No, that's fine. I think you should challenge me.
Now, let's move on to the main event. There's a reason that Kent is here with us, other than just to occupy a corner and offer the occasional insight. That's because he's basically been our primary enclosures editor for a little over a year now. Just quietly goes about his business, reviews cases, does it very, very well. And he's here to talk about the Lian Li LANCOOL 215. Now, isn't the LANCOOL kind of an older brand? Like, it's been around for a while, right? They've had LANCOOL cases in the past.
Yes, it's just a name that Lian Li uses on many of their cases, more designed for airflow.
Yeah, and it's not like a super high-end brand. I mean, Lian Li makes really high-end stuff, and they OEM a lot of the really high-end aluminum cases, but this is affordable, right? This is what is the pricing on this? Like, isn't it under 100? Yeah.
MSRP $70. You can't buy it for that right now, just like anything else, but that's what it's supposed to sell for.
And look at this. for $70. This is, I mean, obviously the build in here, which we'll get to, is outrageous. Can you imagine? By the way, spending $69.99 on a case, and then putting the build that you're about to see in it. I guess, I mean, you're maximizing your dollar, but it's like, for this budget case, I put a $30.90 in it. But hey, sorry to cut in there. But okay, guide us through the design of this case. Audio listeners appreciate the audio guide.
Obviously, the standout point to this case is the two huge 200 millimeter fans in the front. They are ARGB, but they're designed for airflow behind that mesh panel, and they do a really good job. I did have some problem with the case in that they could have done a better job. But some of the designs in the case were a little odd. The material in the case is absolutely just top notch, especially for a case under $100. The fit and finish was not the greatest. Some of the panels did not fit tightly. I've even, when the tempered glass panel is on the side, there's a lot of light that spills through between the seam of the panel and the front panel and that glass panel.
Yeah, usually there's overlap there. So this is just, it meets
there's
up,
overlap,
kind of butts
but
against it.
Yes, and there's no overlap on this, and it just spills through. The frame on the tempered glass side panel is kind of unique to what I've encountered in that price range. And so the tempered glass panel fits on just like a normal side panel. You just slide it in and adjust the two thumb screws at the rear. The biggest issue that I had with the case, though, is how much metal is behind those two fans. You can see it somewhat there, but if you go to the other photo that's taken from the front without the front panel on, that one, you can look between the blades and see how much of the airflow path is blocked by the actual
It's like 50%. It's like 50%, isn't it?
Really, they should have used like a 140, like two 140s on the front.
And I mentioned it in the review. I felt like the case may have originally been designed for 3 120s or 3 140s, which you can fit 3 140s there.
Yeah.
And there are mounting holes for them.
Okay.
But I feel like they just decided, well, let's throw a couple of 200s in there. It'll look great. But even with how much metal is blocking the airflow path, with that mesh front and those two fans, this case performed amazingly.
Let's see.
Out of the box, it had the best temperatures of any enclosure I've tested. It actually outperformed my open test bed.
Yeah, because it's your airflow enhanced there.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the noise penalty versus open test bed?
The front fans and the rear exhaust fan, which is a single 120 that spins up to about 1,400 RPMs, are actually pretty loud. And with the stock fan hub that this case comes with, there's no PWM or DC motherboard plug for it. So when you plug those fans into the controller, they spin at full speed. And the case is loud. I normally don't do it because I want to see how it performs as it's sold. But I just, out of curiosity, I plugged in 3 low noise adapters to those fans. And in the test, the other chart, the first chart actually, Sebastian,
Okay.
there was
back to
almost
the noise. Okay.
Yeah. With the low noise adapters, there was almost no difference in temperature, but the noise was reduced dramatically. When I built the system for taking the photos, I actually just plugged the 3 fans into the motherboard and controlled them in the UEFI. And it works much better that way. And I just pulled the fan hub out entirely.
Yeah, man, it's it only goes down from what is it, like it was 53 decibels or so stock, and then with the low noise adapters, that's considerably lower. But the temps, it's in second place only to itself.
Yes,
We're talking about 2 degrees. So yeah, that's impressive. You'd think they would have used lower RPM fans. Isn't that why you use big fans?
That fan controller really wasn't much of a fan controller at all, really, was it? It didn't amount.
it was just
really
a hub. It also it was a fan hub and an RGB controller. You plugged the front 2 fans into that, or any other 3-pin 5-volt ARGB accessories you might have. You could plug into that and connect to a button on the top of the case on the front I/O and control your ARGB with that. But even with that, there were some issues. The plug for the ARGB control unit that comes from the front panel was actually attached to the ribbon that the power switch and reset switch and were on. So you actually had to peel the 2 cables away so that you could plug into the top for that button. That was just sort of strange.
They didn't expect those to be physically connected or located near each other on the motherboard? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's very strange. But as you see, the build, I just pulled that hub entirely out. It made no sense. You can control all of those things through the UEFI and the motherboard software. And it just cleaned up the whole cable management in the back as well.
Is that the case behind you? I see over your
Yes, it is.
right shoulder. Yeah, and hey, I can't even hear it. So obviously, those fans have quieted down quite a bit.
Yes.
But that doesn't. As nice as your setup looks, and it does look nice on the stream here, there's a very special closing image in your review that I'm going to debut here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Jim.
Jim, our fearless leader of days gone by.
A moment of loved silence.
Jim, if you're watching, and I hope you are, look at this. Look, it's a tribute. He's pointing at the camera in a rather, I don't know if I call this aggressive, but yeah, he's pointing at the camera.
Is it suggestive?
Yeah, I think it's just like, I want you, and you know who you are.
His cheeks are even kind of flushed.
Right, and no matter which way I turn, his eyes are still looking at me. Like I can go way off to the left.
It's
and
like
the right.
the Kramer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have to thank Soren for that image.
we all have to thank Soren for so much. Like last week's thumbnail for the podcast. And by last week, I barely last week. So I finally got the podcast up on Saturday morning, and I apologize for that. It'll be a lot quicker this time. Probably.
Oh, when you were searching for the destroyed card, he had some great ones of you as well today.
No. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You should scroll back and look.
No,
or not.
Okay.
Either way.
Okay.
Either way.
Yeah. But hey, apparently, as I scroll away wildly, because I don't have any mouse control, Gold Award, it looks like. But I mean, hey, we were talking about like the fan hub and this and that. It's $70 if you can find it at MSRP.
That's really why I gave it the gold. Is it's not an expensive case, and for the performance it offers, you just can't beat it for that price in anything that I've seen. There's just so much airflow. One of the things in subsequent testing I've done is if you plug the two front fans into separate headers, you can actually have the lower fan ramp up to temperature of the graphics card if your graphics card has a fan header on it, and then have the top one ramp up to the CPU temperature. And as your graphics card heats up, that lower one will just feed cool air right to it. And it works very well and stays quiet when there's no load.
Hold on, moving away from that shot. Sorry, I appreciate the enthusiasm with trying to send me pictures from Discord, but with the current browser situation, I don't know how I'd do that. Hold on a second, because I wouldn't be able to log in to Discord through this weird vMix browser. Maybe I would be able to, but I'll have to add that in post. Whatever. Is that a real listing? Please tell me that's just a Photoshop. That somebody's not using my face for an eBay listing for graphics cards you can't buy.
It would have been only like 40 minutes old.
Okay.
Come on, that eBay listing would have supported the site for a year.
If I had anything to do with it, maybe, but it's just other people using my likeness to sell graphics cards that I don't even own. Because you know what? These are review units. These are not my personal property. We're lucky enough that NVIDIA sampled us the last 3 graphics cards, the third of which is actually still in the test bed. And then these are the 2. This is the 6800 and the 6800 XT. But, we thank AMD for that. We don't necessarily warrant a 6900 XT, and I kind of get that. But
there were 14 of them.
I know. If there's only... and really, at this point, doing any kind of graphics card coverage is kind of like... It's not the kiss of death. It's just it's not as popular as it would have been in any other year.
Yeah, it sort of feels awkward.
It does. Like, I'm sitting on a couple of AIBs right now because I'm like, this is... Hey, another card you can't buy. What is next? Are we done? Is it time for picks of the week?
Oh, thank the Lord.
I know. So, Josh,
Are you ready for the joke before the picks of the week?
Okay, yeah, hold on. Let me get to camera 2.
Dad joke.
Camera 2.
Okay, so anyway, and it's holiday specific as well. So this guy goes into a pet store, and he sees this really unique parrot sitting there, and the parrot's name is Chet. Big sign, Chet, and it says Chet sings. And the guy looks at the owner, and it's like, well, what does it mean, Chet sings? He's like, well, watch this. He lights a match, puts it under Chet's right foot, and Chet starts singing, "Happy holidays, holidays." And so they thought, wow, that's amazing. Does he do anything else? He lights another match. He puts it under his other foot. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer just sings away. Guys, like, that's the most awesome thing I've ever seen. So he went ahead and bought it for like $1,000, took it home, and he had some friends over. And he's like, guys, watch this. He lights a match, put it under one foot, and sings a Christmas carol. It's like, it's not all. Lights another match, puts it under the other foot. Sings Happy Holidays. And he thought to himself, I wonder what happens here. So he lights another match, and he puts it right in between Chet's legs. Chet perks up, eyes got big, and starts singing, "Chet's nuts roasting on an open fire." It's painful. It's a dad joke.
Well, it was slightly uncomfortable because you were torturing the animal in the story, but then it's a touching holiday story that can teach us a lot about ourselves and other things. All right, well, thank you, Josh, for that. Was that your pick of the week, or did you have like a product or something as well?
I do have a product, and
Okay.
you don't have to light this one on fire, and you can get it for
Is it on
less
fire?
than $1,000.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
It's the Cyberpunk drives are widely available. The Rocket 4 Plus using the new E18 controller.
Oh,
Is that right? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
So only $199, $200 for 1 terabyte. So that's about $50 less than the 980 Pro.
Oh wow! Yeah,
And you're
wow.
getting similar performance, and it's $35 less than the SN85, 850.
And look, it arrives
So,
before Christmas and it's in stock.
Yeah.
What can you
yeah,
say that
so
about anymore?
Not much, especially stuff that's new. I mean, Newegg had 5600X and 5800X in as combos, and that's, of course, the new thing that Newegg is doing is let's get rid of all this other excess stock crap and only do combos on these video cards and processors. So you get a low end 750 watt drive, you get Oloy memory, maybe some motherboards that are not selling so well. And, you pay more than MSRP for these combos. They're getting rid of stock. You're getting a card. You're also getting 2 sticks of memory you're probably never going to use. But, yeah, you actually can buy this by itself now.
Right now. In fact, buy it now.
Right now.
Just buy it.
Yeah. And you can get it in 2 days if you want it.
But that memory you could get is 2166 with no XMP. That sounds like a great deal.
The Oloy stuff is usually, it's like 2 by 8 gigs of 3200, but timings are crap and it's Oloy.
Well, hey, at least you're getting it. And then you can sell the memory for next to nothing because the memory resale market is not great right now.
No.
Right.
Jeremy is next. Jeremy, wake up. Well, I mean, you're still image. It's hard to tell
I don't
what
know.
you're up to over there.
He's just still.
Yeah. But he has a pick, right?
He does.
Jeremy, hold on. He's muted.
Yes.
I rudely muted him somehow.
Oh my gosh, you did.
Okay,
Yeah.
now he's back. He's
It
back.
makes it harder to know that I'm alive if he mutes me
I'm
and
sorry.
freezes my video.
Hey, I'm not the one freezing your video, Jeremy. That's an outrageous,
Likely story.
possibly accurate. What is this?
So,
is this a
chopping
vintage
around
product?
No, it's not. It's a Canadian product, which is even niftier. Apparently, these guys are just outside of Markham, Ontario. The manufacturer is actually called Tama Ori, because that's a good Toronto name. But anyways, I mean, and I don't know if you've noticed, but Hall sensor joysticks tend to start well over $200, and generally significantly more than this. Well, this thing is just over 100 Canadian, free shipping, and there's a better deal which you can't get now because it does come. You can get a throttle along with the joystick, and I think they were charging that for around $140. Unfortunately, the throttle is out of stock and isn't coming back. But what you can get is this thing, and for that price, even if it's not going to be the greatest going. And you can see that it's not quite as fancy looking as some of the other products on the market. But, for just over 100 Canadian, 23 programmable buttons, a proper little throttle on the side there. So even if you don't have the proper throttle, at least you can still change your speed. Because, it's that Extreme 3D Pro that the rubber sort of going on it. And now there's a really huge dead zone in the middle of the joystick. And unfortunately, it then kicks in as if it had been sensing it the whole time. So it's making it very frustrating to try and play anything with a joystick. Whereas the Hall Center is not going to do that. So I'm kind of interested to see if I can manage to pick one of these up and give it a shot.
Yeah, there's only one left, it says. So you better hurry and make up your mind.
Coming.
Oh, okay.
And Newegg got significantly more in stock.
By the way, I was amazed to look underneath at the Logitech, the good old Extreme 3D Pro joystick, which is like a $30, $25 to $30 joystick, or used to be. $75 Canadian.
Crazy.
See, this is
I have 2 of these.
Flight Simulator.
Yeah. It died.
Blown everything up.
Because of course my video isn't working, but
I can see something.
I can see it.
There is some significant problem with the rubber on the inside of this thing.
Oh.
Maybe because it's probably 8 or 10 years old.
No, there's a spring kit you can get for it to kind of refurb it.
I was looking at it and then thinking $100 for a Hall sensor or an afternoon of taking this thing apart and taping various bits so they don't fall off, and
I see your
probably
point.
having to go out and buy some lube at a crappy tire or something, because you're probably going to want something to do the various rollers in there and gears.
Just the phrase "buy some lube" has really set me off. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, other members of our podcast panel might be enticed by that. You just don't know. Brett,
Definitely.
you have a pick, and it looks like they have a fancy website with. Wait,
I do.
No. Is this mind control for games?
Oh my gosh. No, it's for anything. Look at this thing. It's
Says,
freaking
let
awesome.
your mind take control, and it shows people
No, it's
strapping
true.
stuff to their heads and controlling their computers.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a product. It's a product, but it's really for the developer's kit so that you can begin to integrate this with your application. They have a sensor system and a remote system, and it's designed to calibrate into this device that allows you to characterize the thoughts that you're making into controls into your application.
Instant
It
control,
looks-
no less.
Instant. Yes.
And look,
Think about it.
various news outlets have experienced it. Perhaps
Yes.
at a
Didn't
previous year's trade show or
OCZ
something.
have one of these about 10 years ago?
I was thinking that. I couldn't remember who it was, but
I saw an
They're
unboxing
like
video.
quite
on a
shooty.
one like 2 years ago too.
It's 10 years ago. That's 10 years. This is different. It's so much better.
Oh, you're saying it's like VR because there was VR 10 years ago, but there's VR 2020 style.
But there's VR now.
2019
exactly.
style.
I don't know if you noticed.
OCZ NIA Neural Impulse Actuator from 2010.
This is now. That was then.
OCZ
There's
lives
an-
on.
This is an order now button. It's only a couple $100. Yep, you can take a look.
Proceed to check out.
Yeah,
Okay.
proceed to check out. It's like $3.99 or something like that to get this entire kit.
Oh, is that all?
For
Plus a flat fee of $49.
it's more. Think of it as more like a tip. As a tip.
A tip.
As a gratuity.
Price it so it includes the tip. Then don't charge me $49 flat fee for world shipping.
I picked this
Just the
because I
tip.
thought it looked just the tip, mind you, and I thought it looked cool, so that's why I picked it. Not that
Well,
it was
it makes
practical
sense. It
or
makes
useful. I just
As
thought it looked
somebody
cool.
who's obviously primarily concerned with aesthetics, that makes
You know,
sense.
I take that vaguely personally. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you.
I mean, I would take it personally too if it was 100% spot on accurate as to my lifestyle and personality. But yeah.
Look, I'm ordering those new Apple headphones when we get around to it, as soon as they come back in stock.
That should have been your pick of the week.
I know, but you can't order them.
Well, I mean, you shouldn't order what you just picked, but I guess you
Eh.
can.
It's kind of interesting. I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Kent, save us with a real
Yes.
product that actually might make sense.
It might to some people.
It's Intel.
It's Intel, but you know what? You can buy this processor right now.
Burn.
It's $384 at $25 off with a promo code. It includes Crisis Remastered and a software bonus bundle that's about $150 worth of various software as
What
well.
is it? What's the software bonus bundle? Oh, let's see. Comes with
Intel gift. Oh my gosh.
Peacock Premium,
Nero.
Corel Multicam Capture, Nero, DxO, Photo Director, Vegas Pro 365, Corel Painter Essential 7, other things, Auto Chess. It's, there's some value there.
Yeah, there's some
Free.
value there, but you can buy this right now and get a decent motherboard for around $175. Overclock the crap out of it and be playing Cyberpunk 2077 if you've got a graphics card that'll run it.
At PCI 3.0 speeds.
Hey, that's fast enough.
Yeah, because you're going to notice a difference, Josh.
Maybe you will in Cyberpunk. I don't know.
Well, okay, I guess if you actually could, you're presuming that somebody could actually find a current gen card because it's only the current gen that is PCIe 4.
Yeah.
You elitist.
No.
You're
No,
sitting
it's
over
not.
there with your 3080.
You've got a 5700, and that's PCI
Oh, yeah,
4.0.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, 5500, 5600,
I
57.
don't know. I still like to just think that you've become an elitist, Josh.
Okay.
Because now you're just
Yeah,
like,
you
you've
can-
got the latest graphics hardware from AMD and NVIDIA, even though you had to pay hundreds of dollars
Yeah,
of your
well.
own money to make that happen. But beside the point.
Hey, in another...
I just sit here and it gets shipped to me. Josh?
Talk about elitist. Hey, in another elitist story, a couple weeks ago, I went to my local Micro Center, like everybody has a local Micro Center. And I picked up one of these i7-10700Ks for $319. Just want to let you know that.
I don't think that's elitism as much as it is just bragging and mocking us. But, you're upstaging. Look, it's Kent's first time on the podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. I take it back, Kent.
It's a good value. It's $25 off. And you're like, well, at Micro Center. Well, you know what? At Micro Center.
Did it come with Crisis?
No, it didn't come with any of the software bundles.
Did it come with $150 worth of software bonus bundle titles?
It did not. I took the CPU, paid my money, and ran like hell.
Yeah. And then he flipped it. And then he flipped it for like hundreds more.
I put it in a Z490.
Oh, okay.
No, I put it in that Gigabyte board, so I had something to run it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Fair. Because I'm hoarding the others. I have the 10900K and the 10600K, and I don't.
And I got a 700 because it was you had a 6 and a 9. That was why I got the 7.
Yeah, we didn't have an i7. That's true.
Yep.
Good
now
thinking.
We do. Well, it was one of the only thoughts I had.
All right, acceptable. I don't have a pick. I can't think of one anyway. I was going to pick last week. I was going to pick the new 4K Lord of the Rings, but then it wasn't available. But then it suddenly was available. It's kind of all over the map. At one point, I thought they were sold out through the end of the month. I started watching The Fellowship of the Ring the other night, and I have a 4K Blu-ray player. I strongly encourage you, if you're a fan of the movie at all, or have ever, I don't know, if you're just a fan of reference quality stuff to show off your home theater with. And I have not experienced the Dolby Atmos soundtrack yet because I only have 2 speakers hooked up right now like a peasant. But it looks...
You should have like the before and after pictures that you were posting to Discord because it's striking.
I love how the trend apparently this year is to recolor grade so it's not just a horrible like sickly greenish brown tint. Because it looks like some recolor grading may have been done on the latest Matrix remaster. Even though that was an intentional thing. It's like a stylistic choice. Even though I don't personally like it. LOTR, same thing. It's greenish brown, low contrast. Everything looks kind of dusty all the time. The new one, of course, is HDR, but I'm sure some purists will say they're crushing the blacks because the contrast is so intense. But the color is whiter. I have an HDR TV. I noticed that it's extremely like saturated looking, but not overly so. Contrast is much better, and you can tell in certain scenes, like the first confrontation between the 2 wizards. Cannot remember the other wizard's name, but anyway.
Gandalf and Saruman.
Yeah, that Saruman. When you see him, his beard, you can see every hair. It was tremendous. If you're a fan of beard hair, it's worth it for that alone.
Right. It's not just this podcast. You could tune in elsewhere.
At least you're watching the only one of those movies that I can stand to watch anymore. The first one.
Just The Fellowship?
That was
really?
perfect. The Fellowship. I cannot watch the others.
Really?
But I'm also a person who reads The Lord of the Rings once a year. So
okay. I can respect that. If there were significant departures, I have not read through the whole thing. I started to. I have this nice edition of it, and then I got the audiobooks. And they're very well read, but it takes so long to get through Lord of the Rings as an audiobook.
At least we didn't have to have Tom Bombadil and all of his singing.
that is true.
Anyway.
But I mean, it's in the book. Which one is that, by the way? Is that the 2 Towers that has all the
original? No, it's...
That's the Fellowship.
No, it's the first Lord of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, before we get too off topic in our post-show phase, let's just say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry for the half hour of technical problems. And next week, I hope to actually have a working capture card, so there'll be slightly better quality visuals, which I may or may not replace in post. But anyway, thanks for watching.
Quick plug: EVGA has their new XR1 capture card on sale right now for $129.
There you go. It's not like I don't have contacts at EVGA. I can say, hey, could you spare one of those? But yeah, that's not a bad price.
Yeah. Hey, I just got an email from a new patron just now.
Whoa.
Actually, his name Stephen Jed Jedinak, JedYnak. Hey,
Jelinek?
thanks. Yes, is that how you pronounce that?
That's
awesome.
how it's pronounced on Strangers with Candy, but I don't know.
I'm gonna go with you.
Okay. The art teacher, Mr. Jelinek? No, nothing? Okay. Viewer will know what I'm talking about.
He will.
And if you're that lucky viewer, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Good night.